Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Northern Plains Water Voice. I'm your host, Dave Kringen. Today I'm joined by Andy Caven, the Central Flyway Program Director with the International Crane Foundation, and Mike Forsberg, Conservation Photographer and Assistant Professor with the University of Nebraska's School of Natural Resources.
Hey everybody.
We are on the Hooper Highway. This is a 2,500 mile journey. These two began along the Texas Gulf Coast in mid-May and will end in central Saskatchewan at the end of June, hopefully. This journey follows the migratory route of the endangered and federally protected whooping crane. Its purpose is to not only highlight this rare bird, but draw attention to the habitat losses within its flyway. So my first question is, whose idea was this, and how are you guys' legs feeling, and other body parts?
Mike and I have come up with a lot of ideas together. He may credit this to me, I don't know, but we certainly formulated the plan together, and we thought it was a really important way, an interesting way to tell the story of habitat loss and the condition of the Central Flyway, which cuts through the heart of the Great Plains and holds the crane migration corridor, and has certainly been under continued stress from habitat loss. Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
3 years ago, Andy and I spent 8 days and nights without ever leaving, two side-by-side tiny little blinds in Wood Buffalo National Park, photographing and filming and doing scientific observations of whooping cranes at the nest. So we thought we'd do something the exact opposite of that. Instead, just get on our bikes and ride 2,500 miles or so.
And be constantly on the move for nearly 2 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is no small feat these guys are doing. Like I mentioned, they started along the Texas Gulf Coast on May 11th. And as we stand here today in central South Dakota, as we record this, I figured he probably completed somewhere between 60 and 70% of the total ride. So I hope you guys continue, your health continues. So
We're over the hump.
you're over the hump.
Yeah, I think we're right at you. Good calculations. I think we're nearing the 2/3 mark, probably today.
Yeah. So now this isn't just about the bike ride. You guys are doing some daily research every day as well. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, every day we do a 10-minute point count for birds, and then a 10 by 10 plot of vegetation, on the first prairie or wetland we encounter before 11 a.m. in the morning. And that's really to document the biodiversity and condition of grasslands and wetlands in the Central Flyway. And Mike always does a great job helping me with the bird surveys, and people pop in and out who help me with the plant surveys. It's a cursory look at a subset of that biodiversity, but it certainly tells a story. I'm about a week behind on data, but I think as of now, we're probably about 150 plus bird species and 300 plus vascular plant species as of, central Nebraska. I think I haven't entered data efficiently since then, but, we have a good list of biodiversity documented, native biodiversity that this flyway holds, and that's kind of the story, showing how the whooping cranes and habitats they care about are also important to other vascular plants and birds, and why they're a great umbrella species. We're also documenting monarchs along the way because they're an important migratory pollinator, and Mike has excellent eyes. It's very frustrating because I'm a pretty good naturalist and my eyes are good, especially when corrected with my contacts, but this guy sees 20/10 and he cannot miss a monarch, and I'm like, God bless it, he got it first again. Great eyes on this guy.
Thanks, Andy. You're welcome.
So not only the writing and the research, but you guys have also engaged some communities along the way. I know you've stopped at places like the Kansas Wetlands Education Center and the Rose Sanctuary along the Platte River. Maybe talk a little bit about those.
Sure. Yeah, we've done some formal outreach where we've called ahead and set in somebody's schedule. We talked at a school over lunchtime in Texas, in a middle school, and we set out a booth at the Cheyenne Bottoms Kansas Nature Visitor Center, and we had our great homecoming sort of for Andy, who used to work on the Platte, and me from Nebraska, connecting the dots between Rose Sanctuary and the Crane Trust, and had a ceremonial bike ride with about 20 others in the flock, connecting the two over about 25 miles, which was fun. So, but I think the most important things have been just the outreach that we have the opportunity to have just on a whim, particularly in these smaller communities. We were in Gan Valley just yesterday, and in about the 45 minutes we were there, I think we talked to maybe half the population.
I think we did. We met everybody in the county building. We met the gentleman doing the land management for the county. You met a school teacher.
Retired postmaster.
Postmaster.
Actually,
Yeah, sorry.
We saw whooping cranes when she was 10 years old at the country school near there, when there were only about 30 left in the world. She said they had 14 land right outside their schoolhouse.
Yeah, it's a Whooper Highway, so from Gan Valley to Turin, Kansas, we've had these great conversations with rural people, not just about whooping cranes, but about the land and what's changed in their communities and the land around them, and it's been really eye-opening. We've learned a lot
of listening, mostly.
Yeah.
Right.
So now, Andy, you gave a presentation last April up on campus, and during your seminar I was struck by how narrow that whooping crane's migratory route is, and that means that wetland and grassland connectivity up and down that migration route is vitally important. So can you speak on that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like a Russian nested doll, if you will. The Central Flyway is nested within the Great Plains, and the Whooping Crane Corridor is nested within the Central Flyway. And, the Whooping Crane Corridor cuts right through the heart of both. And for that reason, it's a really important corridor, not just for whooping cranes, but a whole host of migratory grassland and wetland birds. Whether it's a bobolink, a chestnut-collared longspur, an upland sandpiper, this corridor is important to a range of biodiversity in the Great Plains. And, as the whooping cranes have lost habitat, we've seen weird things, dryland stopovers, them gathering in the remaining wetlands where there's very few options, especially during a drought, where there's lots of whooping cranes, lots of geese, and there's some disease risks, say, from highly pathogenic avian influenza. And so this corridor, starts to break down a little bit, especially in droughts. Even whooping cranes who can migrate 300 kilometers and about, face challenges. So how are the LeConte sparrows doing, or how are the monarch butterflies doing? And that's one of our big, questions and stories as we go through this, and it's we're at an inflection point where we have to start thinking about what we leave behind, because we've continued to lose a couple million acres a year in most years in recent decades, which is, approximately the size of Yellowstone National Park in the Great Plains in Canada and the U.S. So, as we're telling this story and talking to people, this is, something we want to bring up and we want to hear perspectives on, and we're really worried about, we have to start thinking about sustainability multi-generationally.
So, is there anything else you'd like our audience to know before we wrap things up and you guys get back in the saddle this morning? So, has there been any kind of focus or discovery that you guys have made along the route?
I think one thing that's been really interesting is that every time we get up in the morning, we're making some of the same decisions that the cranes do when they migrate. It's like, can we migrate today? If we can, how far are we going to go? Where are we going to eat? Where are we going to get water? Where are we going to sleep? And what are the road surfaces going to be like? For them, it's what are the pathways in the sky going to be like? Are they turbulent? Are they going to be smooth? All of that stuff. And so having that experience of making those choices and feeling the weight of migration every day is something that's been really a cool analogy that we oftentimes work through each day. Anytime we're presented with either a high note or a low note, and we usually go through both of those things at the end of the day. Where were your highs today? Where were your lows today? And that's been pretty interesting.
There's a lot of days with no lows.
Right.
But there's a lot of days with more than one low too. My big takeaway too is, I've kind of said it in this conversation, but to highlight it one more time is the great way that whooping cranes tie us together and tie the natural world together as an umbrella species and a species of interest for communities. But we've been migrating along, you know, a lot of times cranes are a gateway for people into caring about the natural world, but they're also, you know, the species with formal protections that doing good for them does good for all these other species of birds and habitats. And mentioned a few birds along the way, and it tells the story of the flyway. You know, we started with scissor-tailed flycatchers and painted buntings in the southern Great Plains. We worked our way into upland sandpipers and bobolinks, and now we're in the land of chestnut-collared longspurs and marbled godwits. And all these birds depend on this central flyway in the same habitats nearly, and similar habitats as the whooping cranes. And so, you know, if you care about birds, you know, crane conservation is a great way to go in terms of supporting and thinking about not just cranes but the whole ecosystem, and you know, trying to tell that story.
So, well, guys, I certainly want to thank you both for taking some time out of your schedule to chat with me today. I hope the wind is at your back for the rest of the journey, and I want to thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more right here on the Northern Plains.